Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to talk about something that comes up all the time in women's fitness. We're going to cut through all the myths and the noise and take a hard look at what the science actually says about how your menstrual cycle affects athletic performance. Okay, so this is the big question, right? It's on the mind of pretty much every female athlete out there. You know the feeling. One week you're crushing it in the gym, the next you feel like you're moving through mud. So is that just in your head? Or are your hormones really calling the shots? You know the story we're all told, right? The idea is that these huge hormonal shifts mean your performance is basically destined to be a roller coaster every single month. A lot of us have even been taught to, just expect a dip in performance, especially during our period or that week right before. All right, so what does the actual data tell us? Let's just park the assumptions for a minute and go straight to the research. We're going to look at a couple of really key studies that put this exact question to the test. But first things first, to really get what the science is saying, we kind of need to know the lay of the land. The natural menstrual cycle isn't just random chaos, it's a pretty predictable hormonal dance. So check this out. This chart shows the key players in action. You've got estrogen, which peaks late in that first half, the follicular phase, right around ovulation. And then in the second half, the luteal phase, progesterone kind of takes center stage while estrogen takes a back seat. These are the big shifts that researchers get really interested in when they study performance. Okay, so now that we've got that hormonal map in our heads, let's look at our first major piece of evidence. A recent study did a super deep dive, comparing the performance of trained female athletes against non-athletes all the way through their natural cycles. And look, they were really thorough about this. This wasn't just about one thing, like running. They tested strength, power, speed, agility, flexibility, both muscular and cardiovascular endurance. They really covered the whole shebang. So what did they find? Well, this is where it gets super interesting. When you look at endurance, in this case, a 1,000-meter run, performance was just stable. You can see the lines for both athletes and non-athletes are pretty much flat across all three phases. There was no big drop-off anywhere. And it wasn't just running. Take a look at this. For muscular endurance, measured by sit-ups, it is the exact same story. You see those hormonal peaks and valleys happening in the background? Well, they didn't seem to matter. The number of sit-ups people could do just didn't really change, no matter the time of month. And you know what? This same flatline pattern showed up across all 7 of the fitness tests. So the big takeaway, the thing that really made a difference, wasn't the phase of their menstrual cycle. Nope. It was whether or not they were a trained athlete. The athletes consistently outperformed the non-athletes, period. Listen to what the researchers themselves concluded. They basically said that for the women in their study who, remember, had mild symptoms, the cycle seems to have a minimal impact on performance. That's a pretty powerful statement. All right, that's pretty compelling stuff for a natural cycle, right? But what about everyone on the pill? That changes the whole hormonal picture. So does the science still hold up then? So with a natural cycle, you've got your body's own hormones doing that whole roller coaster thing we saw. But the pill, that's a whole different ballgame. You're giving your body external hormones that basically create a much more stable, low hormone state. It really just has 2 phases, when you're taking the active pills and the withdrawal week when you're not. So naturally, another group of scientists decided to look right at this. They took a group of elite handball players, all on the same type of contraceptive pill, and they tested their knee strength. They compared how strong they were during the pill-taking weeks versus that withdrawal week. And guess what they found? How many significant differences in strength were there between those 2 phases? Absolutely none. 0. A big fat 0. Their strength was just as solid during the withdrawal week as it was any other time. Okay, so at this point, you're probably thinking, great, the cycle doesn't matter, I can just forget about it. Well, not so fast. As it usually is with science, the real story is a bit more complicated than that. So, is it case closed? Should we just ignore our cycles completely? Probably not. There are some really critical nuances here we can't just brush over. Okay, first, and this is probably the most important thing, that main study, it specifically looked at women with mild symptoms. If you suffer from really severe symptoms like debilitating cramps, that can absolutely affect your ability to train and perform. Also, while your broad strength might be stable, some other research hints that more specific skills, like your balance after you get tired, could be affected. And really, the biggest point of all, these studies are about averages. Your individual experience is what matters most. We're all different, and how you feel is always valid. So, where does that leave us? What's the final takeaway here? Well, it really moves us away from searching for a simple, one-size-fits-all rule and towards something much smarter: personalization. The big picture seems to be this. For many of us, the direct biochemical impact of those hormones on our raw strength, speed, and endurance is probably way smaller than we've been led to believe. The sky isn't going to fall on your workout just because you got your period. So what can you actually do with this info? It really boils down to 3 things. 1, just acknowledge that this is super individual. Track your own body. 2, instead of worrying about what phase you're in, focus on managing any symptoms you have. And 3, double down on the things we know for a fact make a huge difference, like consistent training, good nutrition, and quality recovery. And maybe that's the real game changer here. What if we stop asking, how does my cycle hold me back? And start asking, how can I personalize my approach to support my unique body? It's not about a limitation to overcome, it's just another piece of data that helps us listen to our bodies, adapt when we need to, and build a foundation of fitness that's strong and resilient no matter what time of the month it is.